about 4 top aviation leaders meeting to discuss a recent series of close calls involving commercial flights. The rare safety summit comes as the FAA announced they are investigating yet another close call, the 7th since the start of the year. Our Washington correspondent Anna Warnke joins us live from Capitol Hill. Anna, what did federal leaders have to say about these close calls?
Good afternoon. Well, airline leaders called this recent string of incidents troubling. The latest actually happening here in D.C. just last week between 2 commercial aircrafts that almost collided on the runway.
More mistakes than usual are happening across the system.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says he's concerned about the recent uptick in close calls.
On runways, at gates when planes are pushing back, in control towers, and on flight decks.
Buttigieg says the incidents, both in the sky and on the ground, are troubling for an industry that hasn't had a deadly crash for almost a decade.
These recent incidents must serve as a wake-up call for every single one of us.
On Tuesday, the FAA and NTSB launched their 7th investigation this year after a taxiing airplane took a wrong turn at Reagan International Airport and crossed the runway in front of another plane preparing to take off.
Including one at Austin where the aircraft came within 100 feet of each other.
FAA Acting Administrator Billy Nolan assured passengers that it is safe to fly.
There's no question that aviation is amazingly safe.
And says he called Wednesday's summit to identify any patterns between the incidents so the industry can reevaluate its safety standards to prevent another near miss from happening.
Concrete steps that we can take in the near and midterm to make the world's safest transportation system even safer.
Nolan also raised questions on whether the increased demand in air travel contributed to these incidents or if the industry is prioritizing efficiency over safety. For now, live in Washington, I'm Anna Warnke. Back to you.
For insight on this, let's bring in Chief Transportation Correspondent and seasoned pilot May-Kay Beeler. May-Kay, we talked a little bit about this before, but there was a lot in this summit here. So what stood out to you the most?
I listened to it all. It was very informative. I think we need to guard against complacency. And a lot of leaders and experts talked about that. So this is the safest time in aviation history for us. It's the safest time. Maybe we're taking it for granted. We're getting complacent. That's why these close calls maybe are happening. We don't know. So how do we fix that? Training, perhaps, training. Initial training, of course, and recurrent training. Now, if you knew the training that pilots undergo, you would not have any fears. There would be no white-knuckle flyers. It is extensive. It is grueling, and I know that. But perhaps we need to focus more on training. We have so many young folks now, new pilots coming into the mix. The wise, older pilots, male and female, are being forced to retire the second they turn age 65. So there aren't the mentors that we need for young pilots. Technology is changing, the environment is changing. We have the most complex airspace system in the world. So training perhaps is the key to prevent being complacent. Also, like these near misses, these runway incursions. So you're probably wondering, what's a runway incursion?
That was going to be my next question.
That's where an airplane, a person, or a vehicle is on a protected side. Where airplane takeoff and land, it's the runway. They're not supposed to be there.
Right.
They're in a place they're not supposed to be. How is this happening? When a pilot taxis out, he talks to ground control and gets a clearance. And the clearance says, okay, taxi to runway 36, center via, and they give them the taxi route.
It's very specific, yeah.
They write it down, they read it back, it's all recorded, but they need to pay attention. Where are they going?
Keep your eyes on the road, right?
Yes, and they have a map in the airplane, they have a taxi diagram. They can't be distracted. They need to pay attention.
So real quick, you mentioned that we are in the safest time for flying. Is this something that is happening more frequently, or is this just the hot topic in the news right now?
It's happening more frequently.
It is. Okay.
It's an uptick. That's why we had the safety seminar today. We need a call to action. Okay. Something's got to be done. There's a thing called tombstone mentality. We don't make a change until people die. We don't want that to happen. Let's take action now.
Well, this is a good proactive step after a few incidents to kind of get ahead of this and make sure it doesn't happen again. May-Kay Beeler, thanks so much.
Thank you.
For a full breakdown of what officials talked about during this safety summit, as May mentioned, it was a lot. Just head to our story on our website, qcnews.com, and be sure to download the QC News app to read our stories on the go.